Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to go through it pretty quick. Just wanted to share some information with you. This is going to be covering the red flag laws that have been passed in Maryland. This is mdcourts.gov, so it's an official Maryland website, and you can type in mdcourts.gov /ERPO, and it'll bring you directly to this page. And I'm just going to go through it real quick and show you what we got. A ERPO is an extreme risk protective order, or what you might otherwise call a red flag law. And October 1st, 2018, these went into effect. You can look up House Bill HB 1302, CH dot 250 under the 2018 legislative session. I'm going to have to go through this pretty quick just because of the amount of time that I have to film this. But if you pause your screen, then you can see what all these different kinds of things say. I'm just going to go through them really quick. What is an extreme risk protective order and what can it do? Extreme Risk Protective Order, or ERPO, is a court-issued civil order temporarily requiring a person to surrender any firearms or ammunition to law enforcement and not purchase or possess firearms or ammunition. And possess means you can't have them in your possession, so you can't go to the gun range either. With reasonable belief that a person meets requirements, an ERPO allows the court to refer somebody for an emergency evaluation due to mental disorder. What can a red flag not do? A red flag cannot order a person to stop threatening or committing abuse, stay away from your home, place of employment, or school, have no contact with you or others. There are other legal remedies to obtain these protections. One of the problems that I have here is if you feel somebody's such a danger to themselves or others that you need to remove their firearms from them, why don't you tell them to stop threatening or committing the abuse? Tell them to stay away from your home, place of employment, or school, and tell them not to have contact with you or others. Why would you have to file a separate peace order against that person if you've already filed a red flag order against that person? And on this site, anything in red, anybody who knows anything about computers knows, anything in red, you tap on it and click on it, and it'll pull up a link. So we'll just keep going through here. Who can file an extreme risk protective order? The state of Maryland is probably the most aggressive with their red flag orders. They allow far more people to file a red flag than other states do. And that's not how they sold it. They sold it that it was going to be professionals and close family members. But here we go. Here's who can file an order against you. A spouse, a cohabitant. A cohabitant means somebody that you live with. And in certain states, establishing residency is as simple as leaving your toothbrush behind, spending the night for a couple days. So be careful of what a cohabitant means. Relative by blood, marriage, or adoption. Person with children in common, so your mom, baby mama, baby daddy. Current dating or intimate partner. Current dating, obviously that's your boyfriend, girlfriend. Intimate partner, we all know that intimate partner could mean, somebody who you take home from the bar at night. Not saying whether that's right or wrong, do what you want, but intimate partner is a very suspect term. Current or former legal guardian, law enforcement officer, or, let's see if I can blow this up for you a little bit, make it easier for you guys to read. Medical professional who has examined the respondent. This includes a physician, a psychologist, clinical social worker, licensed clinical professional counselor, clinical nurse specialist in psychiatric and mental health nursing, psychiatric nurse practitioner, licensed clinical marriage or family therapist, or health officer or designee of a health officer who has examined the individual. One of the problems I have here is marriage counselor and family counselor. You're supposed to be able to trust these people with your, you're supposed to be open and honest and fair. I have nothing against anybody who needs to seek out this help. I believe if you need help, you should seek help. But this is supposed to be confidential. You're supposed to, really be open and honest, and then your therapist can file an order against you. I've got to go through this fast, so I apologize again. I've shot this twice already, and each time I exceeded the time that my camera would, or my phone would let me do it, and I apologize for the resolution. I'm using my cell phone camera to shoot a video of my friend's laptop screen, so sorry about that. Who's an extreme risk protective order filed against? Okay, a person who poses an immediate and present danger of causing personal injury to self or others by having firearms. The person who is alleged to be a danger is called the respondent. So whenever you see the word respondent, then that means the person that the order is getting filed against. Factors demonstrating possible risk include, and here's some pretty suspect stuff. Alarming behavior and statements. That's very open to sorry about that, my dog was barking. Alarming behavior and statements. That's very open to debate on what that means. Nowadays, if you disagree with somebody, your speech is violence, or you're a Nazi, or you're a racist. Unlawful firearm possession, which is illegal already. Reckless or negligent firearm use, which is illegal already. Violence or threats of violence to self or others, which I'm pretty sure is illegal already. Violating peace or protective order, which is illegal already. Drug and or alcohol abuse, which you can't use. You're not supposed to use a firearm if you're on drugs or alcohol. And or information contained in health records. That's a little bit suspect. We do have privacy concerns here when your health records can be made open to the court like that. An extreme risk order can be filed against a minor. So a minor is obviously anyone under 21, but it also is anyone under 18. And then this right here, I'm going to just let this freeze on the screen for a second so that way you can read it. This basically just says exactly what it is. How do you apply for one of these? And it's, got multiple different steps, which I'll go through slowly, so if you want to read it, you can pause it. If you really want to read it, I would suggest going to the Maryland website, marylandcourts.gov/ERPO, and it'll bring you right here. If you have these laws in your state, please look them up in your state. Maryland is considered the most aggressive red flag state, and you could very well easily be next. This is a big deal. These red flag laws are a big deal. It's supposed to be common sense gun legislation, and I've got a story that goes along with this. That's why I'm showing you this kind of stuff. And step 2, file the petition. Temporary hearings. Maybe going too fast. Appear for a final hearing. I'll leave that sit there for a second so you can read that. I wanted to go more into detail. The other videos that I shot were going over a half an hour, into the 40-minute range, and my camera doesn't have that. I would have had to do it in 2 parts, and I just rather do it in 1 part just to make it, simple for people who are going to watch. And I was getting a little long-winded, so it was probably my fault too. There's no fees. You can file these for free, and you can file appeals for free if they're denied. Do I need an attorney? This is an interesting one to me. It is your decision. If you decide to consult, hire an attorney, make contact as soon as possible to allow the attorney enough preparation time to assist you. Some of these red flags are sent to you by mail, and some of them are served in person. So if you've been served in person and they come and immediately confiscate your weapons, you don't have a whole lot of time to get your attorney up to speed on where you're at. And I would think from a state-run website, they would recommend an attorney instead of just leaving it up to you. I understand this is America. You have the decision to defend yourself if you wish, and you can choose what you want to choose. But I'd figure that the Maryland website would say, we highly recommend that you don't come to court without representation. How long does it last? This is where the term interim, temporary, and final that we saw just a little while ago come into play. What if either side disagrees? Can they file an appeal? There's different appeals processes for the person who it's filed against and the person who files it, whether they're denied or not, or accepted or not. Can it be modified or rescinded? And there's a whole new filing thing that you have to go through to rescind it, extend it, or modify it. What happens if the person violates it? Violation of an order is a crime that may result in a finding of contempt, arrest, criminal prosecution, imprisonment, and or fine. The respondent can be arrested with or without a warrant if law enforcement officer has probable cause. If a law enforcement officer has probable cause. Sorry about that. This tells you what happens if you've been given one of these orders. And this is a little bit important, so I'll go through this stuff real quick. Okay. If a law enforcement officer serves the respondent personally with an extreme risk protective order, that's important to the story that I'm going to tell. I'm not telling the story, actually. I keep saying that, but I'm going to share a story with you. I'm not telling it. It's something that actually happened. The respondent must immediately surrender all firearms to the officer. It doesn't say ammunition there, but it says it right there, so that's unclear. I think that the state of Maryland should be a lot more informative when they're going to write this. I mean, they're supposed to be our state government, and you know, this is kind of thrown together. Let's see. If the respondent receives a red flag order by mail, the respondent must contact the law enforcement agency designated in the order for an arranged immediate surrender. So basically what that means is they're going to send you a letter. As soon as you get the letter, you got to contact them, and then they'll set up a time and place for you to come, whatever county or district that the petition was filed in. You got to follow all their rules, so whatever state rules that you have as far as locking your gun and all that kind of stuff. Plus, they'll tell you in the order how to transport the firearms to surrender it. Make sure they're unloaded, and all your ammunition has to come too. So it keeps saying firearm, 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 but you have to have your ammunition as well. Take them directly to the barracks. Bring a copy of the thing with you. The respondent must comply with the law enforcement agency's delivery instruction. Each firearm and ammunition must be surrendered immediately to the designated law enforcement agency for the county or city where the extreme risk protective order was issued. Contact information will be for the designated law enforcement agency will be included with the order. Then it says down here, how do you regain your firearms and your ammunition? And right here, the first line is the only one that I'm going to be covering so far. You can read all the rest of the stuff here. It says that when the red flag terminates or expires, the custodial law enforcement agency will notify the respondent that he or she may request return of firearms and ammunition. So this thing's expired, it's over with, it's done, and you still have to request your stuff back. Now, I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, request means ask for. So you have to ask them to give you your property back, as opposed to this thing's done and over with, and now I still have to request my firearms back. Maryland's tricky like that. If you've seen any of my other videos, I talk about the HQL, and this Wednesday I get to go pick up another pistol, and it's going to say on the email that they're going to send me, most likely, cross my fingers, you know, it's going to say, congratulations, you are not disapproved. for your firearm purchase. It doesn't say, hey, you're approved, or hey, go get your firearm, your time is up, because we have to wait 8 days between the time that we file for the paperwork and the time we pick up the actual pistol. But it says not disapproved. Same thing with requested. So be careful in your states, because they put words down that you might just gloss over, but that means something right there. Okay, now here is another important thing, and it goes along with the story, the news report that I'm going to talk about. Are court records relating to an extreme risk protective order confidential? It says all court records relating to an extreme risk protective order are confidential, and contents may not be divulged by subpoena or otherwise, except by order of the court on good cause. A reference to the court record will not be included on the judiciary case search. So what this means is, you can't, if you're a reporter, you can't get any information about this. If you're looking for public information, you're not going to get any public information on this. The people who have the rights to the files are right here. The personnel of the court, which makes sense. The respondent, which means the person that the order was filed against, or the counsel for the respondent, so you and your lawyer can look it up. Authorized personnel by the Maryland Health Department, who is going to make a judgment against you. Maybe for you or against you, but they're going to testify in your court case, your civil court case. Authorized personnel of a local Corps service agency or a local behavioral health authority. Once again, somebody who's going to testify against you. Law enforcement agencies testify against you. A person authorized by the court order for good cause is shown. They're not going to bring somebody in to testify unless it's going to help their case. That's your responsibility to bring in somebody to testify on your behalf. And then, how do I request the evaluation? You can look down through here, and I'll leave it on the screen for just a second. That's the end of it. The commissioner has to find probable cause. So, there's some, you would hope that, somebody files a order against you, and then the court will unbiasedly look at it and make a sound decision, but we don't know about that. Okay, and here's the article that I wanted to talk about. You can find this on the Capital Gazette. You can also type in red flag shooting in Maryland, Glen Burnie, Maryland, Anne Arundel County, Maryland. There's a couple different articles written about it, and here is what the headline is for this specific article. It says, Anne Arundel Police Chief, shooting was evidence that month-old red flag law is needed. And remember, this is November 2018. October 1st, 2018, the red flag law was put into effect. If you want to find this direct article, it was written by Phil Davis. I don't know who he is. Once I read this article, this is the first time I heard of him. He's a contact reporter for the Capital Gazette. I picked this article because it's probably the most in-depth and well-written and fairest article. Most of them read the same. There is one that I read that is a little bit problematic for me, so I'll talk about that as we go along. But it says, the Anne Arundel County Police Chief defended Maryland's new red flag protective law Monday, just hours after a 61-year-old man was shot and killed while officers were trying to serve a court order requiring him to surrender his guns. And I'm going to go through this article kind of quick too, just for trying to save some time. It says, Chief Timothy Altomare said that the fatal shooting in Ferndale was a sign that the law, which went into effect October 1st, is needed. Now, it's October 1st, 2018. Remember, it's November 2018. It's a month. There have been 19 protective orders sought in the county since then, since the October 1st, tying Harford County for the most in Maryland, according to a report on the first month. Statewide, about half of the 114 orders sought have been granted. So since October 1st to this article was written November 6th, the guy was killed on November 5th. 114 orders have been sought. Half of them have been granted in a month's time. And then here's a quick quote from the police officer. If you look at this morning's outcome, it's tough for us to say, well, what did we prevent? He said, because we don't know what we prevented or could have prevented. What would have happened if we didn't go there at 5 a.m. Now, the 5 a.m. thing is important to me. Most times when police are going to serve warrants or raid houses and stuff like that, they're going to go at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning to catch the bad guy sleeping. You know, it's protect the officers. You know, you rush in on somebody who's not expecting to be rushed in on, not sitting there watching TV and seeing you pull up in the driveway. It's officer safety. But that's what you do to criminals. Remember, this is a civil order, not a criminal order. So I don't understand why you're coming to somebody's house to confiscate their weapons at 5 in the morning if they're not being considered a criminal. And if you can read up on top, talks about the cops that were involved and it names the guy. I'm not going to say their names. You can read them here yourself. It says, well, actually, so Gary M. Willis was the guy who was shot. Corporal Jessica Hooper and PFC Gary Zawandi were the officers involved. It hasn't made it clear which one of them fired the shot that killed him or which one was in the struggle over the gun. But police say Willis answered the door at 5:17 in the morning with a gun in his hand and initially put it down next to the door as he spoke with the officers. It's not strange in where this guy lives at on Linwood Avenue. If you hear somebody banging on your door at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're probably going to pick your gun up and open the door. Because, you know, most people aren't banging on your door at 5 o'clock in the morning. This guy didn't know that they were coming. And then I keep doing that. Here's this, I don't know what's happening here. That was a map of the state, and I messed it up. But that shows where the majority of the red flag laws have been sought after in our state. Police say he became irate when the officers tried to serve him with a red flag order and he picked the gun up again. As he struggled with the officer over the gun, it went off and did not strike anyone. One of the two officers then fatally shot Willis with his department-issued firearm, a police spokeswoman said. Alright, and here's some other important stuff here. Where was I? Alright, Maryland's legislators passed the law last year authorizing extreme protective orders, also known as red flag. It allows family members, law enforcement, and others to seek a court order to temporarily prohibit people's access to firearms when they show red flags that they are a danger to themselves. It is considered the strongest in the nation, giving a wider range of people who can petition for an order. It's not how it was sold when the politicians were trying to get it passed. One of Willis's niece said another family member requested a protective order to temporarily remove guns after an incident at the house on Sunday. Not really too sure how reliable that is. This is the second article that I've read about the family members in. The other articles didn't say, so this may or may not be accurate. The Capital Gazette isn't exactly known as fake news, and I have no reason to believe that Mr. Davis is lying, you know, so we're just going to take it as it's written here. There are many articles you can look up and check out for yourself. It says, where'd it go? The heart goes out to Willis was being served an emergency risk protective order following an incident at the house on Sunday night. A niece said one of her aunts requested the protective order to temporarily remove his guns. Now, another article talks about the niece said that she has no reason to believe that Mr. Willis was a danger or this should have been done. So the niece was defending the guy, and apparently the aunt or the aunt, however you pronounce it, is the one that called in the order. Not too sure how they got this information, if they found and questioned the niece and she told, because we saw earlier that all these court records are supposed to be sealed. Right here is important. There have been 114 statewide, a rate that the Sheriff's Office projects would lead to 1,342 in the first year. There's also articles that are talking about police stations are building and adding on to their storage areas for all the guns that they plan on collecting. You know, there's many articles that talk about that. That the police are looking for, you know, over 1,000 of these to be filed, and earlier we saw that about half of them are getting accepted. And the police are building and adding on to their storage areas for all the guns that they plan on collecting. And here's going to come basically the end of my video anyway. Let's see, Altamir, that's the chief, said that the protective orders granted in, what is it? Said the protective orders granted, okay, good spelling there, nice grammar, in the county, his officers have handled 9 and seized around 33 guns in the process. The chief said that while he is cautiously optimistic, so that means he doesn't care at all, the rate of the protective orders won't increase too rapidly. The department is building a storage facility specifically to accommodate the increase in seized firearms. He remains convinced that the law is working. Of course, this is a quote from him. Of course, it causes me concern that officers might be put into a position where they are confronting a person who exhibits evidence of non-clear thought with weapons, he said. But he said he'd rather have trained officers confronting someone in that situation than a civilian. This is where I'm going to end my video. But this is common sense gun legislation, common sense gun control, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that Mr. Willis's niece thinks it's common sense. Now, once again, I have no evidence that that's an actual good report. I just have to go by what we just read in that article. But pay attention to the laws in your state. It's good to pay attention to federal law and what's happening in D.C. and the Second Amendment and stuff. But here in Maryland, our Constitution, our state Constitution, doesn't recognize the Second Amendment. That's why we don't have reciprocity. That's why we don't have open carry or constitutional carry. So it's very important to know what's going on in your state. It's absolutely important to know what, you know, the swamp in D.C. is doing. But you have to pay attention to what's happening in your state. Don't let your state turn into Maryland. You know, hashtag don't Maryland your state, or whatever you want to say it. Pay attention to what's happening, and if anybody tells you that, hey, don't worry about those red flag laws, it's no big deal, your tinfoil hat's on too tight, share this article with them. October 1st, 2018, the red flag laws went into place. By November 6th, which that article was written by, November 6th, there was already 114 petitioned in the state of Maryland. And more importantly than that, a man is dead. A 61-year-old man is dead. And an officer who, I understand when they put the badge on, they put it on understanding that they may have to do something in the line of duty. But as a human being, they have to live with the fact that they killed somebody. Right, wrong, or indifferent, their actions ended another human being's life. So don't just brush off these red flag laws. Pay attention to what's happening in your state. And this video isn't meant for a thumbs up, isn't meant for a like. If you want a thumbs up and all that kind of stuff and sub, that's all great. What I really want to do is find out what you guys think. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and we'll have a conversation about this. Thanks for watching, and sorry for it taking so long.